Wait, so operating room 2 gets taken mid-prep and they are calling it systemic. So this wasn't a mistake. Who is really responsible for this?
They had already unlocked my bed wheels and started pushing me away from the operating room when I heard my surgeon say, "Take her back to pre-op. I need this room now." I was in a hospital gown, IV in my arm, minutes from anesthesia, staring at the doors with my name still lit on the surgery board. No family, no explanation, just two transport aides wheeling me backward like I wasn't even there. Then I saw who was replacing me. A man in a designer robe with a private nurse, his family crowding the hallway, and my surgeon suddenly smiling at people he'd never even met. I asked where they were taking me. Nobody answered. One nurse wouldn't look at me. Another whispered, "This isn't right." Then the hallway doors slammed open. The chief of surgery walked in, looked at my wristband, looked at the room board, then at my surgeon, and said, "Who approved this, and why is she being removed?" Everything stopped. The transport aides froze with their hands still on my bed rails. The private nurse beside the man in the robe lowered her tablet. Even the family members who'd been talking over each other went quiet. My surgeon, Dr. Evan Cole, gave a tight smile like this was all some minor misunderstanding. "Naomi, it's handled. Scheduling issue." Scheduling issue. I'd been waiting 8 months for this surgery. 8 months of pain every time I stood too long, every time I bent over, every time I tried to pretend my body was normal again. I'd done the scans, the blood work, the fasting since midnight. I'd signed 3 different consent forms before sunrise. 2 weeks earlier, Dr. Cole had looked me in the eye and said, "Your first case Monday. Nothing moves this." Now he wouldn't even look at me. Chief Hart stepped closer to my bed and checked the band on my wrist herself. "Mara Bennett?" I nodded. My throat felt dry. "Yes." She looked at the board again. My name was still there beside OR2. Procedure start time, 7:30 a.m. Then she turned to the aides. "Why is this patient in transit?" Neither of them answered. One just looked at Dr. Cole. That told me everything and nothing at the same time. The man in the robe shifted impatiently. Up close, he looked healthy, annoyed, and expensive. His son stepped forward. "Doctor, my father was promised priority this morning." Promised. Chief Hart's eyes moved to Dr. Cole. "By whom?" Dr. Cole exhaled through his nose. "We're making an executive adjustment. Ms. Bennett is stable. She can be delayed." Delayed, like I was a package. I pushed myself up on my elbows, the IV line tugging at my arm. Until when? Still no answer. A nurse near the wall whispered, barely audible, "Her room was ready at 6. Chief Hart heard it, so did I. She held out her hand to the charge coordinator who had just rushed into the hallway carrying a clipboard. "Show me the reassignment authorization." The coordinator didn't move, her face drained of color. There isn't one," she said. "The change was verbal." Chief Hart slowly turned back to Dr. Cole, and for the first time that morning, my surgeon looked nervous. "Verbal?" Chief Hart repeated, sharp enough that everyone in the hallway heard it. No one moved. Machines beeped somewhere behind the OR doors, but out here it felt dead silent. Dr. Cole straightened his scrub top like posture alone could fix this. "We don't need to turn this into a scene. I made a judgment call." "A judgment call that removed a prepped patient from her assigned room?" Chief Hart asked. He gave a small shrug. "Ms. Bennett's case is important but not emergent. We can reschedule." Reschedule. That word hit harder than I expected. I'd already burned through unpaid leave to be there. My insurance authorization expired at the end of the month. If this surgery got pushed too far, I'd have to start approvals all over again. Dr. Cole knew that. I'd told him twice in clinic. I looked straight at him. "You said I was first case. You said nothing would move it." He finally met my eyes, but only for a second. Circumstances changed. The wealthy patient's son stepped in again, expensive watch flashing under the fluorescent lights. My father flew in for this. We were assured everything was arranged. Chief Hart didn't even look at him. "You'll wait your turn." His jaw tightened. "Do you know who my father is?" "No," she said calmly, "and it doesn't matter." A couple of nurses exchanged glances. One of them, the same nurse who whispered earlier, took a step toward my bed. "She was consented, charted, IV started, antibiotics hung," she said quietly. "OR2 has been ready for her since dawn." Dr. Cole snapped toward her. "That's enough." Chief Hart's eyes narrowed. "No, it isn't." She walked to the electronic board, tapped the screen, then looked back at the charge coordinator. "When was Ms. Bennett removed from OR2? The coordinator swallowed hard. "She wasn't, not in the system." Chief Hart turned slowly toward Dr. Cole. "So you overrode a scheduled case without documentation," she said. Then she held out her hand. "Give me your phone, Evan." For a second, Dr. Cole didn't move. You could feel every person in that hallway watching him calculate. If he handed over the phone, something was on it. If he refused, that said just as much. "This is absurd," he said at last. "You're embarrassing the department over a routine adjustment." Chief Hart didn't raise her voice. "Your phone, now." He pulled it from his pocket slowly and placed it in her hand like it physically hurt him to do it. She passed it to the OR manager who had just arrived with the anesthesia lead. "Preserve everything. Messages, call logs, calendar entries." The wealthy patient's son stepped forward again. "My father is being treated here privately. We paid for expedited care." The anesthesia lead frowned. Expedited care isn't the same thing as taking another patient's operating room. The son looked confused for the first time. "That's not what Dr. Cole told us." Every eye shifted back to my surgeon. Chief Hart faced the family. "What exactly were you told?" The older man in the robe finally spoke, irritated more than concerned. "That if we covered the premium package, he could make room this morning." His words. A murmur rippled through the staff. Premium package. He had sold my slot. I stared at Dr. Cole, trying to process it. He hadn't bumped me because of an emergency. He hadn't bumped me because of a mistake. I felt heat rise into my face. "You were going to cancel my surgery after I was already on the way into the room?" "Mara, calm down," he said, using my first name like we were suddenly allies. "That is not what happened." "Then what happened?" I shot back. He opened his mouth, but the OR manager interrupted. "OR2 was fully staffed for Ms. Bennett. Sterile field complete, instruments opened. Nothing operational required a change." Chief Hart extended her hand, and the manager gave her a tablet. She scanned the screen once. Her expression changed immediately. She looked up at Dr. Cole. "Come with me," she said. "Now." Dr. Cole didn't follow her. Instead, he planted his feet in the middle of the hallway like he still controlled it. "No," he said. "We can discuss this after the first case starts." Chief Hart's stare didn't shift. "There will be no first case until this is addressed." He laughed once, short and irritated. "You're shutting down an OR over politics?" The anesthesia lead spoke before she could answer. "We're shutting it down because the alternate patient isn't cleared." The wealthy son turned sharply. "What?" The anesthesiologist held up a chart. "Cardiac consult pending. Morning labs incomplete. No final anesthesia clearance." The older man in the robe looked at Dr. Cole. "You said we were ready." "We were close enough," Dr. Cole said. That line hit the room like a slap. Chief Hart stepped closer. Close enough is not a standard of care. I gripped the bed rail so hard my knuckles hurt. He was willing to move me out, rush someone else in, and risk all of it because money was involved. The nurse beside my bed quietly adjusted my blanket, avoiding my eyes. I could tell she was angry too. Chief Hart turned to the OR manager. "Pull his recent scheduling changes." The manager nodded. "Already started." Dr. Cole's confidence cracked for the first time. "This is unnecessary." "Is it?" Chief Hart asked. "Because I'm looking at 2 prior late room switches tied to private referrals." He said nothing. Then she asked the question that changed the air completely. "Did you receive personal compensation connected to today's case?" No denial, no outrage, just silence. Phones were out now. Family members, visitors, even someone at the far nurses' station pretending not to record. The OR manager spoke quietly into a radio. "Security and compliance are on their way." Dr. Cole looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time all morning. Not with concern, with blame. Chief Hart turned from him and walked to my bedside. Her voice softened, but everyone could still hear it. "Ms. Bennett, your surgery is still happening today." She paused. "But first, there's something you deserve to know." The hallway stayed silent as Chief Hart took the tablet from the OR manager and turned the screen toward herself. "Over the weekend," she said, looking directly at Dr. Cole, "you exchanged messages with a private patient liaison service." My stomach dropped. She continued reading. "You offered a same-day operating room opening in exchange for a consulting bonus and future referral consideration." The wealthy son stared at his father, then back at Dr. Cole. "You told us this was standard." "It is not," Chief Hart said flatly. Dr. Cole finally found his voice. "That wording is being taken out of context." She ignored him. "You selected Ms. Bennett's room because her case was already staffed, prepped, and ready. You assumed she could be pushed several weeks without immediate scrutiny." Several weeks. I felt the air leave my lungs. Months of waiting. Pain every day. Time off work I could barely afford. Insurance approvals that were about to expire. And he had decided I was the easiest person to sacrifice. I looked at him and said the only thing that came to mind. "You treated me like I wasn't a person." He opened his mouth, but Chief Hart cut him off. "Security is here." 2 hospital security officers entered the hallway. Dr. Cole looked around like someone might rescue him. No one moved. The older man in the robe was furious now. "You used my family too?" Dr. Cole tried one last time. "I was trying to help everyone." "No," Chief Hart said. "You were helping yourself." She turned to me then, and her tone changed completely. "Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry. You were treated as disposable. That stops now." I didn't realize how tightly I'd been holding myself together until then. My eyes burned. I nodded because I couldn't speak. The nurse beside me squeezed my hand. "We should have said something sooner." Within minutes, Dr. Cole was escorted away. Staff began interviewing everyone who had witnessed it. Compliance officers collected records. The wealthy family was moved to a consultation room, suddenly far less important than they'd looked 10 minutes earlier. Chief Hart personally introduced me to another surgeon, Dr. Reyes, who reviewed my scans, explained the procedure calmly, and answered every question Dr. Cole used to rush past. "If you still want to proceed," he said, "we're ready." "I do," I said immediately. My surgery started later that morning in the same room that had nearly been taken from me. Recovery wasn't easy, but it worked. The pain that had ruled my life for a year finally started fading. Weeks later, the hospital informed me they had banned verbal OR reassignments, created direct patient escalation channels, and opened a formal ethics review. Dr. Cole resigned before disciplinary hearings were finished. And months after that, I walked into work without the brace I used to wear under my clothes. But the part I remember most isn't the surgery. It's the moment someone powerful walked into that hallway, looked at what was happening, and refused to let them wheel me away.
By the way, cases like this aren't rare. If this happens in your hospital, would you even know, or would you be the next one moved out?